If there is one theme that we are seeing in the NFL these days, it is the influx of young wide receivers making major fantasy impacts right out of the gate. I'm Jamie Eisner here for the Draft Network to break down some of the best and top wide receiver fantasy fits for those of you in redraft leagues in 2022. Let's get right into it with the guy that was essentially traded for A.J. Brown in Tennessee. That's Treylon Burks. And he experienced a very interesting pre-draft process. There were some that were comparing him unfairly to Deebo Samuel. Goes to the combine, runs a 4.5 40, and everybody's kind of off the train. But he's walking into a very solid situation for him to contribute right away. It's why he ranks among my top 30 wide receivers overall. Because who's taking targets away from him in Tennessee's offense? Yes, it's a low-volume passing offense compared to the rest of the league. But where else is the ball going to go? 28.6% of the targets last year from this offense have been vacated, gone, kaput. With A.J. Brown and Julio Jones gone, somebody has got to make up for it, and Treylon Burks is going to be that somebody. He's not going to get all 28% of that, but he's going to get the vast majority, and I think he's going to be somebody that you're looking at as a weekly flex caliber option for you in your fantasy league. Speaking of vacated targets, where's the ball going in Atlanta? Like it's Kyle Pitts, and it's Drake London, the first wide receiver off the board in the real-life draft. Comes in as my wide receiver 45 here. Nearly 32% of Atlanta's wide receiver targets last year have been vacated, with Russell Gage being gone, Calvin Ridley not coming back this year. It is an opportunity for Drake London to have a ton of success. I imagine he could be a red zone threat. He's a high-volume pass catcher, an offense that's going to allow him to be very successful right away. He might not have the physical upside of some of the wide receivers that were taken after him in terms of long-term value, but for year one value, Drake London's going to be a player. Make sure you get him on your fantasy roster as a maybe second flex or a top-end bench guy. Next up, as you're looking to kind of fill out your bench, is kind of a cluster of a few different wide receivers. And I want to start with the Saints' Chris Olave. He's going at a considerable value right now, and I think people almost have Olave fatigue because we talked about him so much last year in the draft process. Many expected him to come out. He doesn't. He goes back and kind of has a very similar season to what he had the year before. But he is a high-end talent. He's a down-the-field threat. I believe he's going to be Jameis Winston's new favorite down-the-field threat. And he can step right into that like Marquez Callaway role, but with just more talent right away, which is going to put him in a really strong position for you to mix him into your lineup late in the season. He's a borderline top 60 wide receiver for me. That's a guy that's going to be high-end on your bench, or in a deeper league, he might even be a flex spot for you. He's somebody I'm targeting at his value across the board right now in best ball and in regular redraft. Speaking of vacated targets from earlier in this video, no team saw a higher percentage of their targets vacated than the Green Bay Packers. 37.8% of the targets from Aaron Rodgers are now gone in that offense. And look, Christian Watson is a physical freak, and you've got to love a lot about this player and what he can develop into. But I want to caution for year one. This is why he's down here at wide receiver 57. It's a little bit more of a dart throw. He has all the physical tools from a speed, height, weight, size, demeanor. He has all the things you want, but he's very raw as a pass catcher. So there's a chance there's some bust potential here. There's also some boom potential. Oh, yeah, and he's catching passes from multi-time MVP, future Hall of Famer Aaron Rodgers this year. So I like him, but I feel like we're making a little bit more of a flyer. He's a much more raw than the other receivers we've talked about so far on this, but he also has a great opportunity in a great offense. Color me intrigued. Coming in at wide receiver 58 to kind of end this trio right now that's all bunched up together is new New York Jet Garrett Wilson. And this might seem a little bit low to you based on where he went in the real life draft, how he was talked about in the pre-draft process, but there are a couple things to consider. One, he probably has pretty low touchdown percentage considering he's catching passes from Zach Wilson 1. And there are a lot of other mouths to feed in this Jets offense. Like you talk about Corey Davis, Braxton Berrios, Elijah Moore. Like there are some pieces inside of this New York Jets offense that is just, you look at and you go, there are a lot of mouths to feed. I'm really excited to kind of see how this offense gels with a full offseason together with all of these new pieces that are in town. I'm excited to see how Garrett Wilson kind of fits into that mold, but I don't think his workload is going to be terribly consistent. I think Elijah Moore and Corey Davis are going to get a lot of work. Oh, by the way, they brought in 2 quality pass-catching tight ends as well in CJ Uzomah and Tyler Conklin. There's just going to be a lot of mouths to feed in this Jets offense, and while Garrett Wilson is very talented, in terms of potential volume, he's probably going to get the least amount of anybody on this list. Rounding out this list and right toward the end of the draftable territory for most 12-team leagues, wide receiver 70, Jahan Dotson of the Washington Commanders. Really like his long-term value, but not a lot is known about what that wide receiver 2 position is going to look like in Washington. How much is Curtis Samuel going to play? Is he going to miss a lot of time with injuries like he did last year? What kind of target volume are we going to see? If we take a clue on what happened in Indianapolis with Carson Wentz last year, his wide receiver 2 is getting about a 14% target share, which is not nothing, but it's not going to be an incredible amount of volume for Jahan Dotson. I like him a little bit more in best ball, where you can take advantage of some of his game-breaking speed and ability down the field, and then you don't have to play him every single week. But he's absolutely a flyer worth taking toward the end of your draft, and somebody I like a lot more in dynasty formats than in regular formats, but still needs to be on your radar across the board. Quite frankly, as do a lot of rookie wide receivers that we haven't had a chance to talk about. There's the Sky Moores of the world. There are George Pickens of the world. There are a lot of players that could have some fantasy value that even if you're not going to draft them high, feel free to take a flyer in the last round and put that little star next to them on your waiver wire, because as we have seen year after year after year, rookie wide receivers are making an impact, and they're making an impact right away. And I don't think 2022 is going to be any different at all.